Welcome to Thriving with ADHD, a podcast where we'll share everyday practical tips to thrive in life as an adult with ADHD. This podcast is brought to you by Animo Sano Psychiatry, a behavioral health practice with a specialist ADHD clinic based in North Carolina. And this is your host, Nada Pupovac. Welcome to the new episode of Thriving with ADHD, dear ADHD community. Today we are talking about the impact of ADHD on mental health and self-esteem with our PAC, Stefanie Solomon. Stefanie brings a unique combination of educational and clinical experience to her role as physician assistant. Her expertise includes management of chronic illnesses such as diabetes, hypertension, and mental health conditions, as well as evaluation and treatment of acute illnesses through telehealth platforms. Stefanie's commitment to providing comprehensive and compassionate care is evident in all that she does, and we are looking forward to this conversation with her. Stefanie, welcome to Thriving with ADHD. I know you joined Animo Sano Psychiatry relatively recently, but you're already making a great progress, doing a stellar job, not only with our patients, but also educating your colleagues about various topics related to behavioral health care. So I can't wait to dive into this conversation with you.
Yeah, I'm excited as well. Thank you.
Please tell us a bit about yourself. What inspired you to pursue a career in healthcare, and what brought you to our team, to Animo Sano Psychiatry?
Well, I've always knew that, I've always known that I wanted to help people. I wasn't sure exactly what it was I wanted to do. So after I graduated with actually a psychology degree, it was something that was always an interest of mine, but I wasn't sure, exactly what I wanted to do with it or something else. And so I actually I was originally in a master's program for speech pathology, which that was my minor, was communicative disorders. And, it was very interesting, but just, it didn't feel right. It didn't feel like what I was meant to be doing. So I took some time to explore different careers. And someone, kind of after talking to different people, someone said, what about being PA? There's a lot you can do as a PA. There's a lot of, variability as far as specialties. And you could still have like a good work-life balance. And so I did some shadowing of some, other PAs and doctors, and just kind of exploring different careers. And that's kind of when I made the decision to go to PA school. Is I shadowed a couple PAs, and they, had great relationships with their patients, and that's what I wanted. I really liked that they were able to form relationships, long term, and it was just something that I knew that I wanted in my life. So, but I always, like I said, found psychiatry and psychology interesting, and I always found the human mind and how it works and behaviors fascinating. But it kind of took me a while to kind of figure out specifically what area I wanted to be in. So I worked in primary care for a long time because that's where I had seen the relationships form originally, and I enjoyed it. But during the pandemic, I saw more and more, mental health illnesses come about and increasing, and I just found it more rewarding helping these individuals than I did with, actual physical illnesses. So I started doing some research, and I just happened to stumble upon Animo Sano Psychiatry on LinkedIn, just doing some, searches. Maybe it was like through a connection, or I'm not sure exactly, but something about the company just seemed different or, special. Like it seemed like a company that I wanted to be a part of. And so I just kind of randomly reached out to the practice manager, and, figuring it was a long shot. And as it turned out, my timing was perfect because they were hiring.
Exactly.
And,
Yeah.
6 months later, here we are. So, I've been very happy with the practice. It's a great
I am so glad we have you on board. So that's excellent. Now let's move to the topic of this podcast and this episode. So we will be talking about ADHD and self-esteem. So is there a connection between ADHD and our self-esteem?
Yeah, absolutely. So, low self-esteem is actually extremely common among people with ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
So, due to poor executive function, they may not meet the demands or expectations of others or of themselves. They may be used to people telling them, that they've made a mistake. They're always late. They're forgetful. They're lazy, or they don't care. They find themselves being subjected to constant correction and criticism.
Mm.
And this starts early on in their life. And, typically it's ongoing into adulthood. They're often made to feel as though they're not as smart or as capable as others. So, even when it's coming from people that might mean well, it's still damaging when it occurs over and over again. And not necessarily, being told that by their parents, teachers, peers, which likely has happened, but witnessing it as well. They start to feel frustrated, embarrassed, humiliated, and discouraged after failing over and over again, despite their best efforts. When they do something wrong, for example, running late to something, or they make a careless mistake, they'll be especially hard on themselves and
Mm.
say, I can't believe I was late again, or I'm such an idiot, I can't do anything right.
Mm.
And these struggles occur in many different areas of their life. So whether it be in like their professional lives, like school or work, or personal lives, in their relationships. Um, and so, the framework of how you see yourself is built by early life experiences, but it also adjusts over time with new experiences.
Mm.
And now that more and more individuals with ADHD are getting diagnosed later on, these core beliefs about oneself have already, formed and been compounded on over time. And so they may not believe in themselves. They see themselves failing before they even begin something. And they have trouble forgiving themselves for their past mistakes and believe that they can never be as good as others, or don't deserve their successes when they do achieve them. So this sense of failure, feeling inept or stupid, um, often causes people with ADHD to give up easily on things, or think they shouldn't even try. And, they're just always comparing themselves to others.
Yeah.
And this constant feeling of defectiveness or inadequacy can also lead to feeling sensitive, hypersensitive to rejection or criticism.
Yeah. So basically, yes, it's connected.
Yeah.
Yes, it's developing
Yes.
early on, and it's very damaging for the person with a condition. So you touched a bit on influence of close people. So can we talk a bit more about how can support of or lack of the support from family and friends impact self-esteem of people with ADHD?
Yeah. So, well, a lot of our core beliefs about ourselves, form when we're young, very young.
Yeah.
Even as early as infancy, children start to develop trust in their caregivers.
Mm.
Um, and so when kids start being called things by, their family or parents, they may be, called names like that they're dumb or lazy, or they don't care about careless, or that
Mm-hmm.
they're an idiot. But even when they don't overtly put down their children, parents often get visibly frustrated when they don't act the way the child doesn't act the way that they want them to or expect them to, or perform the way that they want them to. And so this can cause a lot of stress, which can affect the whole family and cause the child to feel sad, and sometimes result in, oppositional or defiant behavior. And when they don't have a, necessarily a cheerleader, I feel like everyone's kind of against them,
Yeah.
just affects them. Yeah.
Yeah. And is there some like common cultural or societal factors related to the condition that can impact the self-esteem? Sort of, I can imagine it goes broader than family or friend circle.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, in starting around elementary school, children start to learn about different social and academic demands. So,
Mm.
and when they have success, this leads to a feeling of competence. But when they fail or don't perform, or, the same as their peers, this can result in, feelings of inferiority. And so, what they may experience a lot of academic failure or learning difficulties, and then being rejected by their peers. So, seeing your peers have an easier time completing or achieving things makes you wonder, why do you have a harder time or take longer to do things? And then as teenagers, we start to develop our sense of self and our personal identity. So when you see others doing things that you have trouble with, you start to have this negative appraisal of yourself and become, pessimistic and have self-doubt and low self-esteem. And then a lot of, ADHD, people with ADHD may have other comorbid conditions like learning disabilities, Tourette's or tic disorders, and neurodevelopmental disorders. So the likelihood of having one of these other conditions is higher in individuals with ADHD. So this can cause them to have more social anxiety around and possibly be rejected by their peers. Another thing to mention is, the stigma around ADHD and mental illness, while improving, becoming more evident, is still present. So I think that, a lot of people still don't truly understand ADHD and how debilitating it can be. And so people who think they might have it or that they have it, they might be afraid to be open about it. Or they may even be in denial about their condition, which would only further impede, their ability to move forward, or might discourage them from seeking treatment. And especially, girls and women are most susceptible to this because ADHD can present very differently in them. And a lot of women are being diagnosed later in life and may feel that others, might not believe them, or that they have it and that they're making excuses for their struggles.
So can we talk about low self-esteem and further impact on one's mental health and well-being?
Yeah, definitely. So these early failures in life can and likely will cause shame. So it's estimated that those with ADHD receive 20,000 corrective or negative messages by age 10. So they know that they're different from other people, but they don't understand why, and they feel flawed, right? So over time, years of failure and this constant negative criticism has a significant impact on one's confidence and willingness to try things that they believe they're not capable or worthy of. Additionally, it can lead to this development of toxic shame where they believe that they're, inadequate, unworthy, and flawed. And so they may withdraw or lash out against others or feel the need to hurt others when they're feeling defensive. They know that they're trying and, they don't know how to explain why they're having trouble or doing the things that they're doing. And so especially in relationships. So a lot of relationships suffer because of this. Also, there's something called there's a cycle, like the shame cycle. So the shame cycle is when they start to, have these negative self-talk internally, where they start to say, I can't do this. I'll never get there. I'm not capable of doing that. I'm not smart enough. And all these negative thoughts and self-talk leads to these maladaptive or negative coping strategies. So even more procrastinating, avoiding doing things altogether, crisis management when they do wait till the last minute or, it's too late for something. And then, these negative coping strategies results in just more negative emotions like depression, anxiety, anger, and frustration, and therefore, confirming your core beliefs that you're defective and a failure. So then, they start to not always, but these individuals, people with ADHD, may be more susceptible to more disruptive behaviors like substance abuse, smoking, criminal activity, and even like reckless driving. So studies have showed that ADHD, can increase the likelihood of traffic accidents and speeding tickets and DUIs. And I also heard recently on a podcast that I think it was like 60% of inmates in prison have ADHD. And so especially I think when undiagnosed, all these negative feelings and shame lead to these maladaptive behaviors. And these individuals are just more likely to be held back from reaching their goals. And, due to all these academic failures, more trouble in relationships or failed relationships, and frequent issues with work performance or like interpersonal relationships at work.
Yeah, it sounds like a vicious cycle. It sounds like recognizing the condition, talking about it, breaking the stigma, hopefully is the way to go. And I hope we are doing that with this podcast and with everything we are doing in our practice. So yeah, I hope more people find solution for, at least acknowledgement and then solution for to the management of the condition. So now let's talk about the solutions. Let's talk about what we can do to improve our self-esteem. This is for people with ADHD, but I suppose everyone can benefit from this conversation. So I suppose I will have two parts question for you. First is, what is it that we can do for ourselves if we're struggling with low self-esteem?
Yeah. So first and foremost, treat yourself with kindness and compassion. So strive to understand yourself and your condition.
Yeah.
If you can accept yourself for who you are, it will be easier for others too as well. And surrounding yourself with people that support you and love you. So for who you are, right? So family and friends, if they don't understand and can't work with you or leave you because of your faults, because of the condition, then they don't deserve to be around you, right? So finding people that love you for who you are, and also educating them on why you have these difficulties, and so that they can help you as well. And then maybe consider joining some support groups with others that have been through similar things. So there's a lot on social media now, virtually or even in person. There's lots of ways to join communities of others who have kind of had similar struggles. And I think that knowing that you're not alone is really just helpful in itself. And then, but as far as, going back to the treating yourself with compassion, you have to also change your core beliefs about yourself. So making a new pathway to change your thoughts, decide where you want to go in life. And it will be hard because you've, dealt with this lifetime of negative feelings. So you have to work at it, and it'll take time and practice. But, when you start to feel the shame is about to rear its ugly head, take a second to note your strengths and your talents, and do the work to strengthen them. I heard on another podcast recently, one lady, she describes all her negative self-doubts as her gremlins. And so she kind of just laughs at the gremlins, like when they come out, like, oh, like kind of just like laugh at yourself once in a while, like when you make a silly mistake, and then just in the future, learn from that mistake and move on, instead of calling yourself names or ruminating on it. Another person on that podcast said that she kind of gives the voices that, with the negative thoughts, she gives them like names, or they're like little personalities. So she like will talk to them, and if they start to say, you're too stupid or lazy, she'll say, yeah, like that's enough of you, like, and then she'll just move, so she's like telling the voice, like, go away, kind of thing. And she finds that, easier, it helps her to cope with that, and not let it like affect her as much. So another thing that I wanted to mention was asking for accommodations. So ADHD is a recognized disability with the ADA, the American Disability Association. And so schools and employers may be legally obligated to provide accommodations, such as more time for tests or providing a quiet workspace, whatever it may be, that'll help you to perform better. And so this can make all the difference, because once you start to perform better, then it'll help boost your self-esteem, as you'll see what you're really capable of. And then also medication. So several of my patients, note that they're hesitant or apprehensive to start ADHD medication, because of the stigma around stimulants, and they just think that, they should be able to do it on their own. But
Mm-hmm.
the fact of the matter is this, the science and research show that you can do all the, the things and have all the tools in the world. But if your brain chemistry is just different, then sometimes this medication is just essential to kind of making that difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the ones who, do give it a chance, even despite their apprehension, they tell me what a world of difference it makes. And it really does. So, while it won't treat the condition, it can provide the crutch or tool needed to do what you've had so much trouble with in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So one patient of mine, she described it as, it was like there was a door with a keyhole, and she didn't know that there was even a key that would open it up or what that was,
Mm-hmm.
until she tried the medication. And I really like that analogy, because until you see the difference it can make, you might think, this is all I am. I'm bound to struggle forever. And it shouldn't have to be like that. So,
That's thank you for sharing that example. And yes, we on another episode of ours we talked about workplace conditions, so people can check that out as well. And these are all fantastic mechanisms to cope. And I suppose it's overall and comprehensive approach. There are many things that you can do for yourself to lift yourself up, basically.
yeah.
Now, the second part is what we can do to support others, to
Yeah.
boost them up, to give them, a bit more support in a right way and lift their self esteem.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
So, if you are a parent or a loved one of someone with ADHD,
yeah.
let them understand their condition. Let them know that, while having ADHD shouldn't be used as an excuse, it, probably explains why they have trouble doing certain things, starting tasks, getting things done that they said they're going to do, that, remembering things. It doesn't mean that they're lazy or that they're, dumb. It's just like, those are executive functions,
Mm-hmm.
that they struggle with, and that's okay. So they may have to work a little bit harder, than others to get the same results, and that's okay too. So come up with a game plan with them by pinpointing specifically what areas they struggle with and how to tackle them. So for example, if they are constantly losing their keys, help them, by getting a dish or a hook or something that they can put their keys on every time, instead of knocking them down and telling them that, they can't believe you lost your keys again. Help
Mm-hmm.
them, figure out ways to kind of overcome that one obstacle. And, um, the more they start to, you know, do better with those things, then their self-esteem will likely improve.
Mm-hmm.
So encouraging them to, always do their best, um, and just motivate them and uplift them, not put them down. So, I know it's probably easy to get frustrated, and just try to not, but, and it might take practice as well. But, remember they need a cheerleader. Um, and that's, having that support will really help with them, making changes as well. So.
Yeah, and I think there are lots of great resources out there with ideas for productivity, relationships, arranging your space, setting up reminders for yourself, and I think patients as well as their close ones and loved ones can learn those and help each other to get outside of this circle of frustration and apply solutions really to the situation. I think everyone will feel better in that case. Thank you for sharing this very well advice with us. And we would like to finish our episodes with one thing that you would like our listeners to come to bring from this episode. So, if there is anything that you would like people to remember from this whole conversation, what that would be?
Yeah. So, um, one thing I wanted to say was, if you have been diagnosed with ADHD, especially if it's later in life, it can be easy to feel kind of sad and angry, reflecting on your past difficulties, upset with those who put you down. And instead of grieving the past or what could have been, have gratitude for, the chance to make changes. So, have gratitude for your diagnosis if you've been diagnosed, and look forward. So, striving to understand why you or your loved one is the way that they are, instead of wishing you were normal or neurotypical. This understanding is the key, I think, to thriving with a condition. And so, build your support system, identify your strengths, accept yourself, and work hard, and you will thrive. And don't feel afraid or embarrassed to seek help, from whoever, it may be that can provide that for you. So.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you, Stefanie, so much. I really enjoyed this conversation. I hope we'll have you again on our podcast with another topic. So, that's it for today.
Great. Thank you so much, Nada.
You're very welcome. Thank you for listening to Thriving with ADHD. This show is produced by Animo Sano Psychiatry. Please follow, rate, or share our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other streaming app of your choice. Music is by Daddy's Music from Pixabay. For more information about Animo Sano Psychiatry, please visit animosanopsychiatry.com.